The woman stumbled into Glenrio, New Mexico territory, just after dawn on a Tuesday in August 1885. Her dress torn at the hem, and her boots covered in dust from what looked like days of walking. Jacob Jensen noticed her first from the corral where he was breaking a young gelding, the morning sun already hot against his shoulders despite the early hour. She moved like someone who expected to be followed, her dark eyes scanning the sparse main street of the small frontier town with the kind of wariness that came from genuine fear rather than simple caution. Jacob watched as she paused near the general store, one hand pressed against the weathered wooden post that held up the awning. Even from a distance, he could see her swaying slightly, exhaustion written in every line of her body. He secured the gelding's lead rope and wiped his hands on his work pants, then started across the dusty street toward her. His ranch foreman, old Tom Cassidy, called after him asking where he was going, but Jacob just waved him off without looking back. "Madam." Jacob kept his voice low and steady as he approached, the same tone he used with skittish horses. "You all right?" She turned toward him so quickly she nearly lost her balance, and he saw her face clearly for the first time. She was young, probably mid-20s, with dark hair escaping from what had once been a neat bun and olive skin that spoke of Mediterranean heritage. Her brown eyes were wide with something between panic and exhaustion. "I am fine," she said, but her accent told him English was not her first language, and the slight tremor in her voice contradicted her words entirely. "You do not look fine, if you will forgive me saying so." Jacob stopped a respectful distance away, not wanting to spook her further. "When did you last eat?" She opened her mouth as if to answer, then seemed to reconsider. Her gaze darted past him down the street, and he recognized that look too. He had seen it in the eyes of cattle thieves and wanted men, but also in the eyes of people who had good reason to run. "There is a restaurant just down the street," he continued when she did not answer. "Mrs. Chen makes a good breakfast. Would you allow me to buy you a meal? I have no money to repay you." The words came out stiff with pride despite her obvious desperation. "Did not ask you to repay me." She studied his face for a long moment, and Jacob stood still under her scrutiny. He was 32 years old, tall and lean from hard work, with sun-weathered skin and light brown hair that needed cutting. His mother, God rest her soul, had always said he had kind eyes, but he had never put much stock in such things. Right now, he just hoped this frightened woman would see that he meant no harm. "Why would you help a stranger?" she asked finally. "Because you look like you need help." Jacob shrugged. "And because my mother raised me to do right by people when I can. The offer stands, no strings attached." After another hesitation, she gave a small nod. "Thank you." Jacob gestured toward the restaurant and fell into step beside her, but not too close. He noticed how she kept herself positioned so she could see both him and the street, and how her hand kept drifting to her skirt pocket as if checking for something. Up close, he could see the dark circles under her eyes and the way her dress hung loose on her frame, like she had lost weight recently. Mrs. Chen looked up from wiping down tables when they entered, her round face breaking into a smile when she saw Jacob. "Mr. Jensen, good morning. Your usual." "Morning, Mrs. Chen. Yes, please, and whatever the lady would like." The woman glanced at the handwritten menu board on the wall, seeming overwhelmed by even that simple choice. "Eggs," she said uncertainly. "And bread." "Eggs, bread, bacon, potatoes, and coffee," Jacob amended. "She needs a proper meal. Right away." Mrs. Chen disappeared into the kitchen, and Jacob guided his companion to a table near the back wall, noting how she positioned herself so her back was to the corner and she had a clear view of the door. "I am Sophia," she said after they had settled into their chairs. Sophia Casper, Jacob Jensen. Most folks call me Jake. He leaned back in his chair, keeping his posture relaxed and non-threatening. Where are you coming from, Miss Casper? Her jaw tightened. Far away. Fair enough. He did not push. And heading where? I do not know yet. Somewhere safe. Mrs. Chen brought coffee, and Sophia wrapped both hands around the cup as if drawing warmth from it despite the summer heat. She took a long drink, closing her eyes briefly, and Jacob saw some of the tension ease from her shoulders. Glenrio is safe enough, he offered. Small town, quiet. We get some cattle drives through and occasionally someone causes trouble, but mostly folks keep to themselves. You are a rancher? Sophia asked, her eyes flicking to his worn work clothes and the dust on his boots. I am. Got a spread about 5 miles north of town. Cattle mostly, some horses. My father started it back in '72, and I have been running it since he passed 3 years ago. I am sorry for your loss. Thank you. Jacob paused as Mrs. Chen brought their food, the plates piled high with scrambled eggs, crispy bacon, fried potatoes, and thick slices of bread with butter. Sophia stared at the meal like she could not quite believe it was real. Go ahead, Jacob encouraged. Eat. She did, and despite obvious hunger, she ate slowly and carefully, with the practiced manners of someone who had been raised properly. Jacob worked on his own breakfast and tried not to watch her too obviously, but he found himself curious about this mysterious woman who had walked into town looking like she had escaped from somewhere or someone. You live alone on your ranch? Sophia asked after a while, her voice still cautious but less brittle than before. Got a foreman and 3 ranch hands who work for me. They have their own quarters in the bunkhouse. My house is separate. It is quiet, but I like it that way. It sounds peaceful. It is. Jacob wiped his mouth with his napkin. Miss Casper, I do not mean to pry, but are you in some kind of trouble? Are you running from the law? No, she said quickly, then amended, not the law, but I am running from someone, a man. Her hands tightened on her fork. My husband. Former husband, I should say, though he would not see it that way. Jacob felt something cold settle in his chest. He had suspected something like this, but hearing it confirmed made it real. He hurt you. Sophia was quiet for a long moment, and when she spoke again, her voice was barely above a whisper. Yes, many times. I finally had the courage to leave 3 weeks ago. I took what little money I had saved and left Santa Fe in the middle of the night. 3 weeks. Jacob repeated, doing the math. Santa Fe was a good 200 miles northeast of Glenrio. You walked all this way. I got rides when I could. Wagons heading south, a freight driver, a family traveling to Texas. But mostly I walked, and I stayed off the main roads when I could. I thought he would follow, but I have not seen him since I left. You think he is still looking? I know he is. Sophia's voice was flat with certainty. Victor does not let go of what he considers his, and he considered me his property, bought and paid for. Jacob felt his jaw tighten with anger, but he kept his voice calm. You are not property, Miss Casper. You are a person with every right to be free of a man who hurts you. Try telling that to most people. Sophia's laugh was bitter. I went to the law in Santa Fe before I left. The sheriff said that what happened between a man and his wife was not his concern. He told me to go home and be a better wife. Then he is a fool and a bastard, begging your pardon for the language. Jacob drained his coffee cup and set it down with more force than necessary. Miss Casper, I would like to make you an offer, and I want you to know there are no strings attached to it. I need help at the ranch. My foreman's wife used to help with cooking and mending and such, but she passed last winter. The men and I have been managing, but we could use someone to help with those tasks. Room and board plus wages. You would have your own room in the main house with a lock on the door. You would be safe there. Sophia stared at him like he had just spoken in a foreign language. "You would hire me." "Just like that? You do not know me. I know you need help and I can provide it. That is enough." "Why?" The single word carried the weight of all her suspicion and fear. "What do you want from me?" Jacob met her eyes steadily. "Nothing except someone to help run the household." "Miss Casper, I am not a saint, and I will not pretend my ranch is paradise. But I can promise you a safe place to stay and honest work if you want it. You can stay a day or a week or a year. No one will force you to do anything you do not want to do." "You could be lying." "I could be," Jacob acknowledged, "but I am not. And I think you know that, or you would not have let me buy you breakfast." Sophia studied his face for a long time, and Jacob let her look. He had nothing to hide. Finally, she drew a deep breath and nodded. "All right, I will try it. But if you are lying, if this is some trick, I will leave." "That is fair." Jacob signaled Mrs. Chen for the check. "Do you have any belongings?" "Just what I am carrying." Sophia gestured to a small cloth bag he had not noticed before, sitting on the floor by her feet. Jacob paid for breakfast, and then led her outside where his wagon was hitched in front of the general store. He helped her up onto the seat, noting how she flinched slightly when his hand touched her elbow, then climbed up beside her and took the reins. The ride out to the ranch took about 40 minutes, and Sophia spent most of it looking around at the scrubland and distant mesas with an expression that was hard to read. The landscape was harsh and beautiful in equal measure, all red earth and tough vegetation under an endless blue sky. "It is so open," she said finally. "I grew up in Italy in a small village in the mountains. Everything was close together there. And Santa Fe, even that felt crowded compared to this." "Takes some getting used to," Jacob agreed, "but I like being able to see for miles. Makes me feel like I can breathe." "I think I understand that." Sophia's voice was soft. "It is hard for someone to sneak up on you out here." Jacob glanced at her and saw the shadow cross her face. "Your husband, Victor, what kind of man is he?" "Dangerous." Sophia's hands twisted in her lap. "He was charming when we first met. I had just arrived in Santa Fe from New York, where I had been living with my aunt. She died, and I had nowhere to go. Victor seemed kind at first, attentive. He courted me properly, and we were married within 3 months. I thought I was lucky to have found someone. When did things change?" "Almost immediately after the wedding." Sophia's voice went flat, emotionless. "He was like a different person, controlling, jealous, violent when I displeased him. He did not want me to have friends or to leave the house without him. He said it was because he loved me so much, because he wanted to protect me. But it was not love, it was ownership." "How long were you married?" 4 years. 4 years of walking on broken glass, trying not to set him off. But it never mattered what I did. If dinner was too cold or too hot, if I smiled too much at someone in town, if I spent too much money at the market or too little, there was always a reason. Always an excuse for him to remind me who was in control. Jacob felt his hands tighten on the reins. "I am sorry you went through that. So am I." Sophia was quiet for a moment. "What made you decide to leave Santa Fe when you did?" He was getting worse. "Talking about wanting to start a family, but I could not bear the thought of bringing a child into that house. I started saving money, a little at a time from the household account. And then one night he came home drunk and in a rage about something at his business. He hit me hard enough that I fell and hit my head on the table. When I woke up, he was asleep in his chair. I took my hidden money, packed a small bag, and I just walked out the door. I have not looked back." The ranch house came into view as they crested a low rise, a solid adobe structure with a covered porch and several outbuildings scattered around it. The corral held about a dozen horses, and in the distance, Jacob could see cattle grazing near a water tank fed by a windmill. "It is bigger than I expected," Sophia said. My father built most of it. He had dreams of a big family, lots of children running around. But my mother only had me, and it nearly killed her bringing me into the world. The doctor said she could not have more children after that. Jacob pulled the wagon to a stop in front of the house. They filled the space with love instead, made it a happy home. I have tried to keep it that way. He helped Sophia down from the wagon and led her inside. The house was simple but well built, with thick adobe walls that kept it cool in summer and warm in winter. The main room served as kitchen, dining area, and sitting room, with a large fireplace dominating one wall. A hallway led to the bedrooms in the back. "This is the guest room," Jacob said, opening a door to reveal a small but clean space with a bed, dresser, wardrobe, and a window that looked out toward the mountains. "It has a lock on the inside of the door, see? Key is in the lock. You can keep it wherever you want." Sophia stepped inside slowly, running her hand over the simple quilt on the bed. "It is lovely, much nicer than what I expected. Bathroom is at the end of the hall. We have running water, got a well and a pump system my father installed. Not fancy, but it works. Kitchen is back in the main room, and you will find everything you need there. My room is on the other side of the house, and the bunkhouse is about 50 yards behind the main building. Where do you want me to start?" Sophia set her small bag on the bed and turned to face him. "Today you should rest. You look like you are about to fall over." Jacob held up a hand when she started to protest. "I am serious, Miss Casper. Get some sleep, clean up, settle in. Tomorrow is soon enough to start working." "I do not want charity." "It is not charity. You cannot work if you collapse from exhaustion, and you cannot cook if you do not know where anything is. Rest today, learn the layout tomorrow, start your duties the day after. That is just practical." Sophia studied him for a moment, then nodded. "Thank you, Mr. Jensen. Jake is fine." He moved toward the door, then paused. "One more thing. I need to tell my men that you are here and that you are under my protection. They are good men, but I want to make sure everyone understands the situation. What will you tell them?" "The truth, if that is all right with you. That you are escaping a bad situation and that anyone who causes you trouble will answer to me. That is more than I have any right to expect from a stranger." "Maybe," Jacob said, "but it is what you are getting anyway. Lock your door and get some rest, Miss Casper. You are safe here." He left her there and went to find his men. Tom Cassidy was in the barn checking on a mare that was close to foaling, and the other 3 hands were working on repairs to the corral fence. Jacob gathered them all together and explained the situation in simple terms. Tom, who was in his 50s with a weathered face and shrewd eyes, just nodded. "Figured it was something like that when I saw her come into town. She has that look about her. The wife had the same look when I first met her, running from a bad father. Some men are just devils, plain and simple." The other men, Carlos and Pete and young Danny, all agreed to keep an eye out and to treat Sophia with respect. Jacob had hired good people over the years, men who did honest work and did not cause trouble. He trusted them to do right by this frightened woman who had stumbled into his life. The rest of the day passed in normal ranch work, and when evening came, Jacob made a simple dinner of beans and cornbread. He knocked on Sophia's door to tell her food was ready, but she did not answer. He knocked again, louder this time, and finally heard movement inside. "Miss Casper." "There is dinner if you are hungry." The door opened a crack and Sophia peered out. Her hair was loose now, falling in dark waves past her shoulders, and she had changed into a different dress from her bag, this one slightly less worn. "I fell asleep. I am sorry. Nothing to apologize for." "Are you hungry?" "Very." They ate together at the simple wooden table, and the silence was surprisingly comfortable. Sophia looked better after her rest, less like she might shatter at any moment. When they finished eating, she insisted on washing the dishes despite Jacob's protests. "You said I am here to work," she pointed out. "Let me work." So he let her, and he sat on the porch afterward watching the sun set behind the distant mountains while she moved around inside, putting things away and getting familiar with the kitchen. When she finally came outside, the sky was turning purple and orange and the evening air was starting to cool. "It is beautiful here," she said, settling into the chair beside his. "Peaceful. It is that." Jacob leaned back and stretched his long legs out in front of him. "Miss Casper, can I ask you something?" "You can ask." "Do you think your husband will be able to track you here?" Sophia was quiet for a long moment. "I do not know. I was careful. I used different names when I could, took confusing routes. But Victor has money and connections. If he is determined enough, he might find me eventually. If he does, we will deal with it." Jacob's voice was firm. "But I want you to promise me something. If you see him, if you even think you see him, you tell me right away. Do not try to handle it alone." "Why are you doing this?" The question burst out of her like she could not hold it back anymore. "You do not know me. I could be lying about everything. I could be a thief or worse. Why would you risk your safety and your home for a stranger?" Jacob considered the question seriously. "My father used to say that a man is measured by what he does when no one is watching, and no one will thank him for it. He said that doing right is not about reward or recognition. It is about being able to look at yourself in the mirror and know you did what you could when someone needed help." "You needed help, Miss Casper. It is that simple." Tears glittered in Sophia's eyes, catching the last light of the sunset. "You are a good man, Jacob Jensen." "I am just a man," he said quietly, "but I try to be a good one." The days that followed fell into a steady rhythm. Sophia proved herself to be an excellent cook and an efficient household manager. She mended clothes, organized the kitchen, and even started a small vegetable garden beside the house. The ranch hands quickly came to appreciate her efforts, and Jacob found himself looking forward to coming in at the end of a long day to find dinner ready, and the house filled with the warm smells of cooking. But more than that, he found himself simply enjoying Sophia's company. She was quiet at first, always watching and listening more than speaking. But gradually, as she began to feel safer, she opened up. She told him about growing up in Italy, about the mountains and the olive groves and the small stone houses clustered on hillsides. She told him about coming to America after her parents died, about living with her aunt in New York and working in a dress shop until her aunt passed away. "I thought Santa Fe would be a fresh start," she said one evening as they sat on the porch after dinner, watching the stars come out. "I had heard it was beautiful and I thought maybe I could find work there. Instead, I found Victor." "He does not define your whole story," Jacob said. "That chapter is over now. You are writing a new one." "I hope so." Sophia hugged her knees to her chest. "Some days I still cannot believe I got away. I keep expecting to wake up and find myself back in that house, back in that life. You are here and you are safe. That is real." As the weeks passed, Jacob found himself noticing small things about Sophia, the way she hummed while she worked, the way her whole face lit up when she smiled, which she did more and more often, the way she always made sure to save the best pieces of meat for him at dinner, and the way she had learned exactly how he liked his coffee in the morning. He noticed, too, how she was healing. The haunted look in her eyes was fading, replaced by something more hopeful. She laughed more, a bright sound that made something warm unfold in his chest. She started taking walks around the property in the evenings, no longer looking over her shoulder every few seconds. She was becoming herself again, whoever that person was beneath all the fear and pain. One day in late September, Jacob was working with a particularly stubborn horse in the corral when he heard raised voices from the direction of the house. He dropped the training rope and ran, his heart pounding, and found Sophia standing on the porch facing a man on horseback. The man was well dressed in expensive clothes, with dark hair slicked back and a thin mustache. His eyes were cold as he looked at Sophia, and Jacob did not need to be told who he was looking at. "There you are, my dear wife," Victor Casper said, his voice dripping false warmth. "I have been looking everywhere for you." "I am not your wife anymore," Sophia said, but Jacob could hear the tremor in her voice. "I left you, Victor. It is over." "Nonsense. You were confused, upset. I forgive you for running away, darling. Now come along, we are going home." "She is home," Jacob said, stepping up beside Sophia on the porch. "And she already told you it is over." Victor's eyes fixed on Jacob, and something dangerous flickered in them. "And who might you be, Jacob Jensen? I own this ranch and Miss Casper works for me." "Miss Casper?" Victor's laugh was ugly. "She is Mrs. Victor Casper, and she is my wife. She has no right to be here playing house with some cowboy." "I have every right to be wherever I choose," Sophia said, and Jacob heard strength in her voice now, joining the fear. "You hurt me, Victor. For years you hurt me. I will not go back to that. You ungrateful little witch." Victor's mask of civility slipped, revealing the cruelty beneath. "After everything I gave you, everything I did for you, you owe me." "I owe you nothing." Sophia stepped forward and Jacob moved with her, staying close. "You gave me nothing but pain and fear. I would rather die than go back to you. That can be arranged." Victor's hand moved to his coat, and Jacob reacted instantly, his own pistol clearing its holster and leveling at Victor before the other man's fingers touched whatever weapon he was reaching for. "Do not," Jacob said quietly, his voice cold as winter. "Whatever you are reaching for, leave it where it is. You are going to turn your horse around and ride away from here. You are not going to come back, and you are going to leave Miss Casper alone from now on. You have no authority over me." "No, but I have a gun pointed at your chest and I have witnesses." Jacob gestured slightly with his head, and Victor turned to see Tom Cassidy and the other ranch hands standing nearby, all armed. "You are outnumbered and outgunned, Casper. Take the loss and go." "This is not over," Victor spat. "She is my wife under the law." "The law is not here right now," Tom Cassidy said, stepping forward. "But we are. And we are telling you to leave. Man who beats a woman is no man at all in my book. Just a coward who needs to feel big by hurting someone smaller." Victor's face flushed dark red with rage, but he was not stupid enough to draw a weapon against 5 armed men. Instead, he jerked his horse's reins hard enough to make the animal toss its head and glared at Sophia. "You will regret this, both of you." "The only thing I regret is wasting 4 years of my life with you," Sophia said. "Now leave and do not come back." Victor spurred his horse and galloped away, leaving a cloud of dust in his wake. Jacob did not lower his gun until the man was out of sight, and even then he kept it in his hand. "Tom, send Danny into town. I want the sheriff out here." "Sheriff Rodriguez is a good man," Tom agreed. "He will make sure everything is documented proper." Sophia was shaking, Jacob realized, trembling so hard her teeth were chattering. He holstered his gun and gently touched her arm. "Come inside. You are all right. He is gone." She let him guide her into the house and into a chair, and he poured her a glass of water from the pitcher on the counter. She drank it in shaky gulps, then set the glass down with a clatter. "He found me," she whispered. "I knew he would, but I hoped maybe I had lost him. How did he track you here? I do not know. Maybe he hired someone to ask questions, follow the trail. It does not matter now. He knows where I am." "And now he knows he is not welcome here," Jacob said firmly. He pulled out a chair and sat down across from her. "Miss Casper, Sophia, listen to me. That man will not hurt you again, I give you my word." "You cannot promise that. He is dangerous, Jake. He has money and influence in Santa Fe. He could hire men, cause trouble for you and your ranch. Let him try. Jacob reached across the table and covered her hand with his. You are under my protection now. That means something out here. Sheriff Rodriguez arrived 2 hours later, a compact man in his 40s with intelligent eyes and a no-nonsense attitude. He listened to Sophia's story, made notes in a small book, and nodded thoughtfully. I know Victor Casper by reputation, he said. He owns a freight company in Santa Fe, has interests in some silver mines. Word is he is ruthless in business and not above bending the law when it suits him. But he has no authority here in Glenrio, and if what you say is true, he has committed assault and terroristic threatening. It is all true, Sophia said quietly. Every word. I believe you, madam. I have seen his kind before. Rodriguez closed his notebook and stood. Mr. Jensen, I will make sure it is known in town that Miss Casper is under your protection and that Victor Casper is not welcome here. If he comes back, you send for me immediately. But I suspect after today's reception, he will think twice about showing his face around here again. After the sheriff left, Sophia retreated to her room and Jacob respected her need for space. But he found himself unable to concentrate on anything. He kept replaying the scene in his mind, the cold rage in Victor's eyes and the way Sophia had stood her ground despite her fear. When evening came and Sophia did not emerge for dinner, Jacob made a simple meal and knocked on her door. Sophia, I have food. There was a long pause, then the sound of the lock turning. Sophia opened the door and Jacob could see she had been crying. Her eyes were red and puffy and her face was pale. I am sorry, she said. I should have made dinner. It is my job. Your job is whatever I say it is, and tonight I say it is resting and recovering from a difficult day. Jacob held out the plate. Eat something, please. She took the plate but did not move to close the door. Jake, I am putting you in danger. Maybe I should leave. Go somewhere else, start over again. No. The word came out more forcefully than he intended and he softened his tone. No, Sophia, you are not leaving. You have a place here for as long as you want it. But Victor will come back. Men like him always do. Then we will deal with it when he does. But running is not the answer. You would spend your whole life looking over your shoulder, never able to settle anywhere. Is that what you want? Sophia shook her head, tears spilling down her cheeks again. No, I want to stay here. I want to feel safe. I want to stop being afraid all the time. Then stay. Jacob reached out slowly, giving her time to pull away and wiped a tear from her cheek with his thumb. Stay and let me help you feel safe. Let me help you stop being afraid. She looked up at him, and something passed between them in that moment. Something that had been building for weeks but neither of them had acknowledged. Jacob felt his heart start to pound, and he realized with sudden clarity that he was falling in love with this brave, broken woman who had walked into his life and turned everything upside down. Jake, she whispered, and he heard everything he was feeling reflected in that single word. He stepped back, putting distance between them before he did something foolish like kiss her when she was vulnerable and frightened. Eat your dinner and get some rest. Things will look better in the morning. They always do. But sleep was hard to come by that night for either of them. Jacob lay in his bed staring at the ceiling, thinking about Sophia just down the hall, thinking about the curve of her cheek and the way she said his name, thinking about how much he wanted to protect her, to make her happy, to see her smile without shadows in her eyes. He was in love with her. The realization should have scared him, but instead it felt right, like something clicking into place that he had not even known was missing. But she was still healing, still recovering from years of abuse. The last thing she needed was another man making demands on her, expecting things from her. So he would wait. He would be patient. He would show her through his actions that not all men were like Victor, that some men knew how to be gentle and kind, even if it killed him. The next few weeks were tense. Jacob doubled the watch, making sure someone was always alert for any sign of Victor's return. But the man did not come back, and gradually, they all started to relax again. Sophia threw herself into her work, keeping busy from dawn until dusk, and Jacob suspected she was trying to distract herself from thinking too much. They fell into a new routine, one that included sitting together on the porch in the evenings and talking. Really talking about everything and nothing. Sophia told him about her dreams, the things she had wanted before Victor crushed her spirit. She had wanted to open a dress shop, to design and make beautiful clothes. She had wanted children someday, a family built on love instead of fear. Jacob told her about the ranch, about his plans to expand the herd and maybe start breeding horses seriously instead of just breaking and selling them. He told her about his parents, about growing up here and learning to love the land despite its harshness. "You really love it here," Sophia observed one evening. "This place, this life, it is part of you." "It is," Jacob agreed, "but it is a big place for one person. Sometimes I think about what it would be like to share it with someone, to have a partner in building something lasting." He glanced at her as he said it, and she met his eyes. Something electric passed between them, and Jacob saw her breath catch. "Jake," she started, but he held up a hand. "You do not have to say anything. I just wanted you to know. No pressure, no expectations. Just the truth." Sophia was quiet for a long moment, and when she spoke, her voice was soft. "I care about you too. More than I should, maybe, but I am afraid. Afraid that I will bring you nothing but trouble. Afraid that I do not know how to be with someone without fear. Afraid that I am too broken to be what you deserve." "You are not broken," Jacob said firmly. "You are healing. There is a difference, and you do not have to be anything except yourself. That is more than enough." She smiled then, a real smile that lit up her whole face, and Jacob felt his heart skip a beat. "You are a good man, Jacob Jensen. I do not know what I did to deserve stumbling into your life, but I am grateful every day that I did." "The feeling is mutual," Sophia Casper. October turned into November, and the weather started to cool. The cattle were moved to lower pastures for the winter, and Jacob started the hard work of getting everything ready for the cold months ahead. Sophia insisted on helping more around the ranch, not just with household tasks but with actual ranch work. She learned to feed the chickens that had somehow multiplied over the past few months, to collect eggs, and even to help with the milking of the 2 dairy cows Tom had acquired. She was good at it, adapting quickly and working hard without complaint. Jacob watched her bloom like a desert flower after rain, becoming more confident and sure of herself with each passing day. She laughed more now, joked with the ranch hands, and sang while she worked. The haunted look was almost entirely gone from her eyes, replaced by something brighter and more hopeful, and Jacob fell more in love with her every single day. It was Tom Cassidy who finally said something about it. They were working together to repair a section of fence that had been damaged by a fallen tree, and the old foreman gave Jacob a knowing look. "You going to tell that girl how you feel? Or are you just going to moon over her like a lovesick calf for the rest of your natural life?" Jacob nearly dropped the hammer he was holding. "I do not know what you mean." "The hell you do not. Boy, I have known you since you were 15 years old. I can read you like a book. You are in love with Miss Sophia, and unless I miss my guess, she is in love with you too. She has been through too much. The last thing she needs is me pressuring her into something she is not ready for." "Who said anything about pressure?" Tom spat tobacco juice into the dirt. "I am talking about honest conversation between 2 adults who care about each other. You think she does not see the way you look at her. You think she does not feel the same way you do. How do you know how she feels? Because I got eyes in my head and sense in my brain, which is more than I can say for you right now. Tom shook his head. My Martha, God rest her soul, she was running from a bad father when I met her. Scared of her own shadow, flinching at loud noises, never quite believing she was safe. Sound familiar? Jacob nodded slowly. I waited too, thought I was doing the right thing, giving her space and time. But you know what she told me later, after we were married. She said that waiting was the hardest part, because she could see I cared, but I never said it out loud. She said she needed to hear the words, needed to know that someone could love her the way she deserved to be loved. That is what gave her the courage to heal. What if I scare her away? What if you do not? Tom countered. What if she has been waiting for you to say something, and your silence is making her think you do not care as much as you do? You are both dancing around each other like nervous colts. Someone needs to be brave enough to take the first step. Jacob worked on the fence in silence for a while, thinking about Tom's words. The old man was right, as he usually was about such things. Jacob was being a coward, hiding behind excuses about giving Sophia time and space when really he was just afraid of being rejected. That evening, after dinner was finished and the dishes were washed, Jacob asked Sophia to take a walk with him. She agreed, pulling a shawl around her shoulders against the cool evening air, and they walked away from the house toward a small rise that overlooked the ranch. The sky was clear, stars beginning to emerge as twilight faded into night. From their vantage point, they could see the lights of the bunkhouse and the dark shapes of the outbuildings, and beyond that, the vast emptiness of the territory stretching away in all directions. I love this view, Sophia said, hugging herself against the chill. It makes me feel small, but in a good way. Like my problems are not as big as they seem when I look at all this. Sophia, I need to tell you something, Jacob said, deciding to just plunge ahead before he lost his nerve. I have been trying to figure out the right time and the right words, but I do not think there is ever a perfect time for something like this. She turned to look at him, her eyes wide in the growing darkness. What is it? I am in love with you. The words came out in a rush, and Jacob forced himself to slow down. I have been falling in love with you since the day you walked into Glenrio, and every day since has just made it stronger. I love your strength and your courage. I love how you sing while you work, and how you always make sure everyone is taken care of before you think about yourself. I love your smile and your laugh and the way you see beauty in small things. I love who you are, Sophia Casper, and I needed you to know that. Sophia stared at him for a long moment, and Jacob's heart sank as the silence stretched out. He had made a mistake. He had pushed too hard, too soon, and now he had ruined everything. But then she smiled, and it was like the sun coming up. I love you too, Jake. I have been so afraid to say it, afraid that I was confusing gratitude with love, or that I was not ready for this. But it is real. What I feel for you is real and true, and it is nothing like what I felt before. With Victor, I felt trapped and small and afraid. With you, I feel free and strong and safe. You make me want to be brave. Jake let out a breath he had not realized he was holding and reached for her hand. She let him take it, her fingers threading through his, and they stood there in the twilight holding hands and looking at each other like they were both discovering something miraculous. Can I kiss you? Jacob asked, because he needed her explicit permission, needed to know she truly wanted this. Yes, Sophia whispered. Please. He cupped her face in his hands, marveling at the trust in her eyes, and kissed her softly. Her lips were warm and sweet, and when she kissed him back, he felt like everything in his life had been leading to this moment. This woman, this love. When they finally pulled apart, they were both smiling. I want to do this right, Jacob said. Court you properly, give you time to be sure. I am already sure, Sophia said. but I appreciate that you want to take things slow. We have time, Jake, all the time in the world." They walked back to the house hand in hand, and that night, Jacob fell asleep with a smile on his face and hope in his heart. The future, which had seemed so solitary before, suddenly looked bright with possibility. The courtship that followed was sweet and old-fashioned. Jacob brought Sophia wildflowers from the hillsides and small gifts from town. They took walks together every evening, talking and laughing and stealing kisses when the mood struck them. They worked side by side during the day, and Jacob loved how natural it felt to have her as his partner in running the ranch. The ranch hands teased them mercilessly, but it was good-natured teasing, and Jacob took it with grace. They were happy for him, happy for both of them. Even crusty old Tom Cassidy had a smile in his eyes when he watched them together. Christmas came, and Sophia decorated the house with pine boughs and handmade ornaments. She baked cookies and bread and made a feast for everyone on the ranch, insisting that the hands come to the main house to eat with them. It was the best Christmas Jacob could remember, full of laughter and warmth, and the knowledge that he had found something precious. In January, on a cold, clear day with snow dusting the distant mountains, Jacob asked Sophia to marry him. He did it properly, down on one knee in the parlor with a ring he had ordered special from a jeweler in Santa Fe. It was not expensive or fancy, just a simple gold band with a small blue stone, but Sophia cried when she saw it. "Yes," she said through her tears. "Yes, Jake, I will marry you." They were married in February in a small ceremony in town with Sheriff Rodriguez standing as witness, and Tom Cassidy giving Sophia away since she had no family of her own. Mrs. Chen from the restaurant provided the cake, and half the town turned out to celebrate with them. Sophia wore a new dress she had made herself, pale blue silk that brought out the color of her eyes, and Jacob wore his best suit. When the preacher pronounced them husband and wife and told Jake he could kiss his bride, he did so with his whole heart, and the small church erupted in cheers. The wedding night was tender and sweet, with Jake showing Sophia how different love could be from what she had known before. He was patient and gentle, letting her set the pace, and when she cried afterward, they were tears of joy and release. "I never knew it could be like this," she whispered against his chest. "I never knew love could feel so good." "This is how it is supposed to be," Jake murmured, stroking her hair. "Always." The months that followed were the happiest of both their lives. Sophia thrived as the lady of the house, managing everything with skill and grace. The ranch prospered under their joint stewardship, and Jake found that having a true partner made even the hardest work feel lighter. They talked about children, about the family they wanted to build together, and in the summer of 1886, Sophia told Jake she was expecting. He was overjoyed, picking her up and spinning her around until she laughed and begged him to put her down. "We are going to have a baby," he kept saying, wonder in his voice. "We are going to be parents." "You will be a wonderful father," Sophia said, touching his face. "Our child is so lucky to have you." The pregnancy was not easy. Sophia was often sick in the early months, and Jake worried constantly about her health. But she bore it all with remarkable strength, and as her belly grew round with their child, she seemed to glow with happiness. In March of 1887, on a night when spring was just beginning to touch the desert with green, Sophia went into labor. The local midwife was there, and Jake paced the porch outside for hours, listening to the sounds from within and feeling helpless and terrified. When the baby finally came, it was a boy, healthy and loud and perfect. The midwife brought him out wrapped in a blanket, and Jake held his son for the first time with tears streaming down his face. "His name is Joseph," Sophia said when Jake came to sit beside her bed. She looked exhausted but radiant, her dark hair spread across the pillow. "Joseph Jensen, after your father." "Joseph," Jake repeated, looking down at the tiny face of his son. "It is perfect. You are perfect. Thank you, Sophia. Thank you for giving me this, for giving me everything." "We gave it to each other," she said softly. "That is what love is, Jake, building something together that is bigger than either of us alone." They raised Joseph with love and laughter, teaching him to be kind and strong and good. 2 years later, Sophia gave birth to a daughter they named Sarah. And then 2 years after that, another son they named Thomas after Tom Cassidy, who had become like family to them both. The ranch continued to grow and prosper. Jake's reputation as a fair and honest rancher spread, and he became a respected member of the community. Sophia finally got to pursue her dream of designing clothes, making beautiful dresses for the women of Glenrio and surrounding areas in her spare time. She was talented and became known for her skill. Victor Casper never came back. They heard through the grapevine that he had married again, some young woman from Mexico City, and that he had gotten himself into legal trouble with some shady business dealings. Sophia felt nothing when she heard the news except relief that he was far away and no longer any threat to her happiness. The years passed in a blur of hard work and simple joys. They watched their children grow, taught them to ride and rope and to treat others with respect. They celebrated anniversaries and birthdays. They weathered droughts and hard winters. They built a life together that was solid and real and full of love. On their 10th wedding anniversary, Jake and Sophia sat on the porch together as they had done countless times before, watching the sunset paint the sky in shades of orange and gold. Their children were playing in the yard, their laughter carrying on the evening breeze. "Do you ever think about that day you walked into Glenrio?" Jake asked, his arm around Sophia's shoulders. "All the time," she said, leaning into his warmth. "I think about how scared I was, how lost and hopeless, and I think about how you gave me a chance when you had no reason to trust me." "You saved my life, Jake." "No," Jake said firmly. "You saved your own life by having the courage to leave. I just gave you a safe place to land. You gave me so much more than that. You gave me love and family and a home. You gave me a future worth living." Sophia turned to look at him, and even after 10 years of marriage, Jake still felt his heart skip a beat when he saw the love in her eyes. "I fell into your life by accident, but staying was the most deliberate choice I ever made. Every day I choose you, Jake Jensen. Every day I choose this life we have built together. And I choose you, Sophia Jensen, today and every day." Jake kissed her softly, tasting the sweetness of the lemonade she had been drinking and the deeper sweetness of her love. From the yard, Joseph called out that he had found a lizard, and Sarah screamed with laughter while Thomas tried to chase it. Their parents smiled at each other, then stood to join their children, hands linked together as they had been from the beginning. The sun continued its descent, painting the ranch in golden light, and in that moment, everything was exactly as it should be. Sophia had fled a painful past and found not just refuge but a whole new life. Jake had opened his home to a stranger and found the love he had not even known he was looking for. Together, they had built something beautiful and lasting, a testament to the power of quiet strength and the healing grace of love. Years continued to unfold, each one bringing its own challenges and triumphs. Joseph grew into a serious young man who loved working with the cattle as much as his father did. Sarah inherited her mother's talent for design and her father's business sense, and by the time she was 16, she was helping Sophia run a proper dressmaking business in town. Thomas, the youngest, was the adventurer of the family, always exploring and asking questions and dreaming of seeing the world beyond New Mexico territory. Tom Cassidy passed away peacefully in his sleep in 1895, and Jake and Sophia mourned him as they would have mourned a father. He had been there from the beginning of their love story, had encouraged and supported them, and his absence left a hole in their lives. But they honored his memory by continuing to run the ranch with the same integrity and care he had modeled. In 1898, Joseph brought home a young woman named Emma, a rancher's daughter from a neighboring spread. She was intelligent and capable, and Sophia saw immediately that her son was deeply in love. They were married that fall, and Joseph and Emma built a house on the far side of the ranch property, starting their own branch of the Jensen family tree. Sarah surprised everyone by falling in love with a young lawyer who came to Glenrio to set up practice. David was kind and educated, and though he knew nothing about ranching, he loved Sarah with his whole heart, and that was enough for Jake and Sophia. They were married in 1900 in a beautiful ceremony that had the whole town talking for months. Thomas left for college in California in 1902, breaking his mother's heart but making her proud. He wrote long letters home about his studies and his adventures, and though he loved the wider world, he always came home for Christmas, bringing stories and excitement with him. Jake and Sophia grew older together, their hair turning gray, their hands becoming weathered and worn from years of work. But their love remained as strong as ever, perhaps even stronger for being tested and proven over time. They still sat on the porch together in the evenings. They still held hands. They still looked at each other and marveled at the life they had built from such an unlikely beginning. In 1905, Joseph and Emma made Jake and Sophia grandparents for the first time. The baby was a girl they named Mary, and holding his granddaughter for the first time, Jake felt the same sense of wonder he had felt when holding his own children. "We did good, did we not?" Sophia said, watching Jake cradle the baby with practiced ease. "We did better than good," Jake replied. "We built something that will last, Sophia. A legacy of love and family. All because I stumbled into a little town in New Mexico territory 20 years ago, desperate and afraid, and a kind rancher decided to help me. All because you had the courage to accept that help, and to believe that you deserved better than what you had known." More grandchildren followed over the years. Sarah had 3 children in quick succession, and Thomas eventually returned from California with a wife of his own and settled in Albuquerque, where he practiced law and had twin boys. The ranch house that had once felt too big and empty was now always full of family, especially during holidays when everyone gathered together. Jake officially retired from active ranching in 1910, turning over the daily operations to Joseph, though he still spent time every day checking on the cattle and horses, unable to fully give up the work that had defined so much of his life. Sophia finally closed her dressmaking business the same year, deciding she would rather spend her time with her grandchildren and her garden. They had been married for 23 years when Jake had a health scare, a pain in his chest that sent Sophia into a panic and brought the doctor rushing out from town. It turned out to be nothing serious, but it reminded them both that they were not young anymore, that their time together, while rich and full, was finite. "I am not ready to lose you," Sophia said that night, lying in bed beside her husband. "You are not going to lose me anytime soon," Jake assured her. "I am too stubborn to die. Besides, I have too much to live for. Promise me something, Jake. Promise me that we will have many more years together. I want to grow very old with you." "I promise to do everything in my power to make that happen." Jake pulled her close, feeling the familiar comfort of her body against his. "I love you, Sophia. I have loved you since the day you walked into my life, and I will love you until the day I draw my last breath and beyond." "I love you too. more than words can ever express. They did have more years together, many of them. They watched their grandchildren grow and start having children of their own. They celebrated their 30th, and then their 40th wedding anniversary surrounded by family and friends. The ranch continued to prosper under Joseph's management, and the Jensen name became synonymous with quality and integrity throughout the territory. New Mexico achieved statehood in 1912, and Jake and Sophia celebrated along with everyone else. Proud to be part of this land, they had made their home. The world was changing rapidly, with automobiles and telephones and other modern conveniences making their way even to remote places like Glenrio. But some things remained constant, like the love between a man and woman who had found each other against all odds. In 1917, when they had been married for 30 years, Sophia suggested they take a trip. "Let us go back to Santa Fe," she said. "I want to see it again, not as the frightened woman I was, but as the person I became." Jake agreed, and they made the journey north, taking the train for comfort. Santa Fe had grown and changed, but the bones of it were the same. They walked the streets together, and Sophia showed Jake the house where she had lived with Victor, though it was occupied by a different family now. "I do not feel anything when I look at it," she said wonderingly. "No fear, no anger. It is just a house. It has no power over me anymore." "That is because you took your power back," Jake said. "You healed and you built a new life. That took more courage than most people ever have to find." They returned home to New Mexico with light hearts, and life continued its steady rhythm. The ranch saw another generation starting to take interest in running things, with Joseph's oldest son showing the same passion for the land that his father and grandfather had possessed. The cycle continued, as it always did. On a warm evening in May 1925, Jake and Sophia sat on their beloved porch together. They were both in their 70s now, their movements slower, their bodies bearing the marks of long, hard-working lives. But when they looked at each other, they still saw the people they had fallen in love with 40 years before. "You remember when I asked if I could kiss you?" Jake said, apropos of nothing. Sophia smiled, the same radiant smile that had captured his heart. "Of course I remember. It was the first time any man had asked my permission for anything. Best decision I ever made, asking you that question. Best decision I ever made was saying yes." Sophia reached over and took his hand, their fingers intertwining automatically. "We have had a good life, Jake Jensen." "A very good life." "The best," Jake agreed. "All because you were brave enough to run and I was lucky enough to be in the right place when you needed help." "Not luck," Sophia corrected gently. "Fate. It was always meant to be this way. We were always meant to find each other." They sat in comfortable silence as the sun set behind the mountains, painting the sky in brilliant colors. Around them, the ranch hummed with life, family, continuity. The legacy they had built together would outlast them both, carried on through their children and grandchildren and great-grandchildren. And in that moment, with the evening breeze carrying the scent of desert flowers and the sound of distant laughter from the main house where several of their grandchildren were staying, Jake and Sophia knew that they had done exactly what they set out to do all those years ago. They had built a life based on love and respect, on partnership and trust. They had proven that healing was possible, that second chances were real, that even the most painful past could lead to a beautiful future. "Thank you," Sophia said softly. "For what?" "For being exactly who you are. For loving me when I did not think I could be loved. For giving me a safe haven that became a home. For all of it, Jake. Thank you for all of it." "You never have to thank me for loving you," Jake said. "It has been the easiest thing I have ever done." They remained there as darkness fell. Two people who had found each other in the vastness of the American West and built something that would endure. The rancher and the woman fleeing a painful past, brought together by chance and bound by choice. His quiet strength had indeed become her safe haven, and her courage and resilience had made his life richer beyond measure. Joseph came out eventually to check on them, and found them sitting hand in hand in the darkness, so peaceful and content that he smiled and left them there. His children would grow up hearing the story of how their grandfather had met a frightened woman in town one day and brought her home, and how that single act of kindness had changed the course of so many lives. That night, as they prepared for bed in the room they had shared for so many years, Sophia looked around at the life they had created. The simple furniture made beautiful by years of use and care. The photographs on the dresser showing their children and grandchildren. The quilt on the bed that she had made herself, each patch representing a different moment in their long journey together. "I would not change a single thing," she said. "Neither would I," Jake agreed. "Every moment, good and bad, led us here, led us to this." They climbed into bed, and Jake pulled Sophia close, her head resting on his shoulder as it had for 4 decades. They fell asleep like that, wrapped in each other's arms, two souls who had become one through years of shared love and dedication. The years continued to pass, each one a gift. They lived to see the Great Depression, and worried about their family, but took comfort in the fact that ranchers who knew how to work hard and live simply weathered such storms better than most. They celebrated when their great-grandchildren were born, holding tiny babies and marveling that they had lived long enough to see this new generation. Jake passed away peacefully in his sleep in 1932 at the age of 79, with Sophia beside him. She held his hand as he drew his last breath, and though her heart broke at the loss, she took comfort in the knowledge that they had been blessed with almost 50 years together. He had lived a full, rich life, and he had died knowing he was deeply loved. Sophia lived on for another 5 years, spending her time with her children and grandchildren, telling stories about the past, and passing on the wisdom she had gained through her long life. She spoke often of Jake, of his kindness and strength, of the way he had given her a chance to become who she was meant to be. When she passed away in 1937 at the age of 75, she was surrounded by family, her hand held by Joseph just as she had held Jake's hand at the end. Her last words were, "Tell your father I am coming," and then she was gone, reunited with the great love of her life. They were buried side by side on a hill overlooking the ranch, beneath a large cottonwood tree that had stood there since before the house was built. Their graves were simple, marked with modest headstones that bore their names and the years of their lives, but the legacy they left behind was anything but simple. The Jensen Ranch continued to operate and prosper, run by their descendants who carried on the values Jake and Sophia had instilled. The story of how they met, of the rancher who had helped a woman fleeing a painful past, and how his quiet strength had become her safe haven, was passed down through the generations. It became part of the family history, a reminder that love and courage could triumph over fear and cruelty. Their great-great-grandchildren would eventually inherit the land, and they would stand on the porch of the house that Jake had built, and Sophia had turned into a home, looking out over the same vistas their ancestors had loved. The ranch would change with the times, adapting to new technologies and new ways of doing things, but the heart of it would remain the same. And on quiet evenings when the wind blew soft across the desert and the sun set behind the mountains in a blaze of color, it was easy to imagine two figures sitting on that porch, hand in hand, their love as enduring as the land itself. Jake and Sophia Jensen, two souls who had found each other in the wild beauty of New Mexico territory in 1885 and built a love story that would last forever. Their journey had begun with fear and pain, with a woman running from a nightmare and a man who chose to help when he did not have to. But it had transformed into something beautiful and lasting, proof that the darkest moments can lead to the brightest futures, that healing is possible, and that love, real love built on respect and partnership and genuine care, can overcome anything. The end of their lives was not the end of their story. That story lived on in every person who descended from them, in every act of kindness performed in their memory, in every couple who found the courage to choose love over fear. Jake and Sophia had shown that it was possible to rise above the past, to build something new and beautiful from the ashes of pain. And so, the tale of the rancher and the woman fleeing a painful past became legend in the Jensen family, a reminder of where they came from and what they stood for. It was a story of hope and healing, of strength and safety, of two people who found in each other exactly what they needed to become who they were meant to be. In the end, that was their greatest legacy. Not the land or the ranch or the material things they left behind, but the lesson that love, when done right, could be the safest haven of all. That quiet strength, offered freely and without expectation, could give someone the foundation they needed to rebuild their life. That choosing to help a stranger could change not just one life, but generations of lives to come. Jake and Sophia's love story, which had begun on a dusty street in a small frontier town on a warm August morning in 1885, echoed through time, a testament to the enduring power of compassion, courage, and love. They had lived, they had loved, and they had built something that would last forever. And in the great sweep of history, in the vast landscape of the American West, that was the best anyone could hope to achieve.